Tonight, we travel more than 1,000 years into the past, when long ships moved through cold northern waters beneath square woolen sails. Popular stories present every Viking as a muscular warrior who spent his life raiding monasteries, fighting enemies, and searching for treasure. In reality, most people in Viking Age Scandinavia spent far more time farming, fishing, raising families, making tools, trading goods, and preparing for winter. The word Viking described an activity or expedition more than a single unified people who all lived in exactly the same way. The wider Norse world included farmers, merchants, craftspeople, sailors, rulers, enslaved workers, healers, poets, settlers, and warriors. Some people joined voyages only occasionally before returning to farms where crops, livestock, property, and family responsibilities demanded attention. Their communities stretched across what are now Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Iceland, and settlements created far beyond Scandinavia. Life varied according to climate, geography, wealth, gender, legal status, political power, and access to land or maritime trade. The real Viking Age contained exploration and violence, but it also contained ordinary labor, legal assemblies, domestic routines, religious ceremonies, and complex relationships. As the waves grow quiet around us, let us step ashore and discover what it truly meant to live in the Viking world. A person did not belong to a permanent professional class of Vikings from birth, in the way someone might inherit a fixed occupation. Many participants in expeditions were farmers, sailors, traders, craftsmen, or ambitious young men seeking wealth, status, land, and useful connections. A voyage required access to a ship, weapons, provisions, experienced leadership, trustworthy companions, and permission to leave responsibilities behind. Wealthy chieftains could organize crews by promising opportunities for silver, portable goods, political advancement, or a share of conquered resources. Some voyages focused on trade and exploration, while others shifted between peaceful exchange, intimidation, raiding, warfare, and settlement. The same crew might behave as merchants in one harbor and become violent attackers when circumstances appeared profitable elsewhere. Most expeditions occurred during seasons when winds, daylight, sea conditions, and agricultural responsibilities made travel more practical. A farmer who sailed away still depended upon relatives and household members to maintain fields, animals, buildings, and stored food during his absence. Returning successfully could increase a traveler's reputation, while failure might bring injury, debt, disgrace, enslavement, or death far from home. To go Viking was therefore not simply an adventure, but an uncertain investment involving family resources, social ambition, practical skill, and considerable risk. The farm formed the economic foundation of most Norse households and provided the food, clothing, materials, and wealth necessary for survival. Families cultivated crops such as barley, rye, oats, and, in suitable regions, wheat within a short and demanding growing season. Cattle, sheep, goats, pigs, horses, and poultry supplied meat, milk, wool, leather, transportation, labor, feathers, bone, and social value. Every season brought urgent responsibilities involving plowing, planting, fencing, grazing, haymaking, harvesting, slaughtering, repairing, and preserving food. Hay was particularly important because animals unable to graze through winter had to survive upon fodder collected during the warmer months. A poor harvest threatened more than immediate hunger, since weakened livestock and reduced seed stores could damage the household for several years. Fishing, hunting, trapping, gathering wild plants, and collecting shellfish supplemented agriculture according to the surrounding environment. Family members worked together because a household could rarely hire enough outside labor to complete every task during narrow seasonal windows. Wealthier farms depended upon servants, tenants, clients, and enslaved people whose labor supported the authority and comfort of the owners. The strength of a Viking household began not with a sword, but with productive soil, healthy animals, stored food, and workers capable of maintaining them. The center of domestic life was often a longhouse built from timber, stone, turf, clay, or combinations determined by local resources. Its roof might be covered with turf, wooden shingles, reeds, or thatch, creating protection from rain while demanding regular maintenance. A central hearth supplied warmth, light, and a place for cooking, although smoke could linger before escaping through roof openings. Raised platforms or benches along the walls served as seating during the day and sleeping areas after darkness arrived. Privacy was limited because family members, guests, servants, enslaved workers, and sometimes animals occupied connected areas beneath the same roof. Chests stored clothing, tools, valuables, bedding, and personal possessions while also functioning as benches or working surfaces. Wall hangings and woven textiles helped reduce drafts, decorate the interior, divide space, and display the household's skill or prosperity. Oil lamps and firelight produced limited illumination, making winter evenings dim despite the many tasks still waiting to be completed. The smells of smoke, wool, food, animals, damp earth, leather, and human bodies would have filled the enclosed interior. The longhouse was simultaneously a home, workshop, meeting room, dining hall, sleeping space, and visible expression of the family's position. Viking Age clothing was designed for labor, travel, changing weather, and social display rather than the dark leather costumes common in modern entertainment. People wore garments made mainly from wool and linen, while leather, fur, and other materials provided additional protection and decoration. Men commonly wore tunics, trousers, cloaks, belts, socks, and leather shoes shaped according to regional fashion and personal resources. Women commonly wore dresses or layered garments secured with brooches, although styles changed across location, status, and period. Wool could be spun, woven, dyed, felted, and sewn into clothing capable of protecting the body from cold and wet conditions. Available dyes produced colors including reds, blues, yellows, browns, and greens, making Norse clothing more colorful than many modern images suggest. Brooches, beads, arm rings, pendants, buckles, combs, and decorated fittings communicated wealth, identity, craftsmanship, and cultural connections. Combs and grooming tools appear frequently in archaeological discoveries, showing that attention to hair and personal appearance mattered. The famous horned helmet was not standard Viking battle equipment and largely belongs to much later artistic imagination. A person's clothing revealed occupation and status long before a weapon or heroic story could make any impression. The Norse diet depended upon agriculture, animal husbandry, fishing, hunting, trade, season, and the resources available to each household. Most daily meals relied upon grains, dairy products, vegetables, fish, preserved meat, and whatever ingredients could be stored through winter. Barley and other grains became porridge, bread, ale, and thick dishes capable of feeding many people from a limited harvest. Milk was consumed fresh when available, or transformed into butter, cheese, curds, and cultured products that remained useful for longer periods. Fish could be eaten fresh, dried, smoked, salted, or fermented, allowing coastal communities to preserve seasonal abundance. Meat was boiled, roasted, dried, smoked, salted, or added to stews, although poorer families did not consume large portions every day. Cabbage, onions, peas, beans, leeks, herbs, berries, apples, nuts, and gathered plants added variety according to region and season. Honey provided the main concentrated sweetener and could also contribute to the production of mead. Food preparation required grinding grain, carrying water, maintaining fire, processing animals, preserving ingredients, and cleaning heavy containers. A feast displayed generosity and status, but the ordinary Viking meal was usually shaped by practical survival rather than endless meat and drinking. Women held central responsibility for managing food, textiles, children, servants, supplies, dairy production, and many operations of the household farm. When men departed on voyages, women could assume greater responsibility for preserving the harvest, protecting property, and directing daily labor. Keys found in some women's graves have often been interpreted as symbols connected with authority over household stores and valuable possessions. Textile production required enormous skill and time because sails, clothing, blankets, bags, and household fabrics all began with processed fibers. Women prepared wool, spun thread, operated looms, repaired clothing, and produced textiles valuable enough to become important trade goods. Marriage joined families, land, wealth, labor, alliances, and inheritance rather than serving only as a private romantic arrangement. A free woman could possess certain rights involving property, inheritance, separation, and compensation, although these varied by place and circumstance. Those rights did not create modern equality, because male authority continued to dominate warfare, politics, legal representation, and many public decisions. Enslaved women faced far greater vulnerability to forced labor, sexual exploitation, sale, punishment, and separation from their children. The survival of the Norse farm depended heavily upon women's management and production, even when later stories placed male warriors at the center. Viking children entered a world where family labor was essential, and adulthood arrived earlier than it does in many societies today. Infants faced high risks from disease, poor nutrition, difficult weather, accidents, and medical limitations that families could do little to overcome. Surviving children played with carved animals, dolls, miniature boats, balls, gaming pieces, and objects created from available household materials. Play existed alongside work because children gradually learned to gather fuel, watch animals, carry water, prepare food, spin thread, and assist adults. Boys and girls learned many shared survival skills before expectations became more closely connected to adult gender roles. Education usually occurred through observation, repetition, storytelling, instruction, and participation, rather than inside a formal school. Children learned family history, law, religion, navigation, farming, craftsmanship, social behavior, and practical knowledge from older members of the community. A child from an elite household prepared for a different future from one born to a poor farmer, tenant, servant, or enslaved parent. Fosterage sometimes placed children with other households, strengthening alliances and creating lasting social relationships between families. Childhood could contain affection and imagination, but it also prepared young people quickly for responsibility within an unpredictable world. Viking society was divided by wealth, ancestry, reputation, political influence, legal rights, land ownership, and personal freedom. At the top stood kings, powerful chieftains, and wealthy landowners capable of organizing followers, ships, feasts, trade, and military expeditions. Most free people were farmers, craftspeople, merchants, sailors, and household members whose security depended upon land, work, and family connections. Poor free families could lose independence through debt, crop failure, conflict, displacement, or the loss of essential property. Enslaved people, often described by the Old Norse term thralls, occupied the lowest legal and social position. They could be captured during raids, purchased through trade, born into slavery, or forced into dependence through other circumstances. Thralls performed agricultural, domestic, industrial, maritime, and personal labor while lacking control over movement, family, and working conditions. Some were eventually freed, but manumission did not guarantee wealth, equal status, or freedom from obligations to former owners. The trade in captive human beings connected Scandinavian markets with commercial networks extending through Europe and beyond. The freedom celebrated in Viking legends was therefore supported partly by coercion, inequality, and labor performed by people denied freedom themselves. Norse communities maintained order through laws, customs, family obligations, local leaders, and public gatherings, commonly called things. Free men attended these assemblies to settle disputes, witness agreements, announce decisions, conduct trade, and discuss matters affecting the community. Laws were preserved through memory and oral recitation before legal traditions were recorded in writing during later centuries. A specialist known as a law speaker could recite legal principles and guide proceedings within societies where written documents remained limited. Disputes involved land, inheritance, marriage, injury, theft, debt, insults, violence, livestock, boundaries, and failures to fulfill agreements. Compensation could resolve certain offenses, placing a recognized value upon injuries and attempting to prevent cycles of private revenge. Feuds nevertheless occurred when families believed their honor had been damaged or when legal settlements failed to satisfy the people involved. Outlawry removed a person's legal protection and could force the condemned individual to flee the community entirely. Women's ability to participate directly was restricted, although their property, marriages, testimony, relatives, and household interests appeared in legal disputes. The Viking world was violent, but it was not lawless, because reputation and survival depended upon rules recognized by the wider community. Before Christianity became dominant, Norse religion included many gods, supernatural beings, sacred places, rituals, stories, and local traditions. People honored deities such as Odin, Thor, Freyr, and Freya, but religious practice varied across households, regions, occupations, and centuries. Thor was associated with strength and protection, while his hammer became a widely recognized symbol worn by some individuals. Odin was connected with wisdom, poetry, rulership, magic, battle, and the dangerous pursuit of hidden knowledge. Freyr and Freya were associated with fertility, prosperity, desire, power, and other forces important to household and community life. Offerings might involve food, drink, animals, valuable objects, or ceremonial feasting intended to preserve favorable relationships with supernatural powers. Ancestors, spirits, burial places, landscape features, and household rituals could matter as much as the great gods described in later literature. Many Norse people believed human life unfolded within forces of fate, that even courage and careful action could not completely escape. Christianity spread gradually through missionaries, trade, royal conversion, political pressure, and contact with already Christian societies. For generations, older and newer beliefs overlapped as communities negotiated religious change without abandoning every familiar custom at once. Norse craftspeople transformed wood, iron, bone, antler, leather, stone, glass, silver, amber, wool, and other materials into useful and valuable objects. Blacksmiths produced tools, nails, rivets, knives, agricultural equipment, household fittings, and weapons requiring careful control of heat and metal. Woodworkers built houses, ships, chests, bowls, carts, handles, furniture, and countless objects that rarely survive as well as metal. Specialists created beads, combs, jewelry, textiles, carvings, decorated fittings, and luxury items desired by wealthy households. Trading centers such as Hedeby, Birka, Ribe, and Kaupang connected local production with routes extending across seas, rivers, and overland networks. Merchants exchanged furs, iron, walrus ivory, amber, textiles, tools, slaves, silver, weapons, glass, spices, silk, and many other commodities. Silver served as an important measure of value and could be weighed, cut, stored, worn, or melted regardless of its original form. Foreign coins and objects found in Scandinavia reveal connections reaching the British Isles, continental Europe, the Islamic world, Byzantium, and Central Asia. Market towns contained workshops, docks, warehouses, homes, animals, mud, smoke, unfamiliar languages, and travelers carrying distant news. The Viking world was never isolated, because trade connected northern farms with political and economic changes thousands of miles away. The ship was one of the Viking Age's greatest technologies, combining flexible construction, shallow draft, speed, and the ability to cross open water. Warships were designed for speed and cruise, while broader cargo ships transported animals, food, timber, household goods, and trading merchandise. Overlapping wooden planks created strong but flexible hulls capable of responding to waves without becoming excessively heavy. A square sail captured favorable winds, while oars allowed crews to maneuver through rivers, narrow channels, harbors, and calm conditions. Life aboard was uncomfortable because open ships offered limited shelter from cold spray, rain, wind, seasickness, and constant dampness. Crew members slept in whatever space was available, protected by clothing, cloaks, sails, tents, or temporary coverings when conditions permitted. Food and fresh water occupied valuable space and could spoil, leak, freeze, or become contaminated during a long voyage. Navigation relied upon accumulated knowledge of coastlines, currents, winds, stars, sunlight, birds, waves, landmarks, and seasonal conditions. A storm could tear a sail, break equipment, separate ships, exhaust rowers, or drive the vessel toward rocks before anyone could respond. Crossing the sea required courage, but it depended even more upon craftsmanship, discipline, cooperation, experience, and respect for changing weather. Viking raids became famous because they brought sudden violence to coastal communities and left powerful impressions upon the people who recorded them. Monasteries could become attractive targets because they contained portable wealth and were sometimes defended less heavily than major towns or fortresses. Attackers sought silver, livestock, weapons, valuable objects, supplies, captives, political advantage, and anything transportable enough to justify the voyage. Success depended upon speed, surprise, intelligence, experienced leadership, and the ability to withdraw before stronger defenders arrived. Most warriors used spears, shields, axes, bows, and practical equipment, while swords remained costly objects associated with wealth and prestige. Helmets and armor offered protection to those who could obtain them, but archaeological evidence does not support armies wearing horned helmets. Shield walls and coordinated movement mattered more than reckless individual combat when organized forces met in battle. Wounds that appeared survivable could become fatal through bleeding, infection, exposure, or the absence of effective medical treatment. Raiders risked capture, execution, enslavement, shipwreck, internal conflict, and returning home with less wealth than the expedition had consumed. Viking warfare was real and destructive, but it represented only one part of lives otherwise shaped by agriculture, family, law, trade, and seasonal labor. Norse sailors traveled westward to the British Isles, the Faroe Islands, Iceland, Greenland, and eventually the northeastern coast of North America. Others moved east and south through river systems toward the Baltic, the lands of the Rus, Byzantium, and markets connected to the Islamic world. Some voyages created temporary camps, while others established farms, towns, political territories, and communities lasting for generations. Around the year 1000, Norse explorers reached North America and created a settlement at the site now known as Lons o Meadows. The settlement did not develop into a permanent Norse colony, but it demonstrated the remarkable range of North Atlantic navigation. Over time, Scandinavian kingdoms became more centralized, Christianity spread, trade changed, and rulers gained greater control over warfare and taxation. The Viking Age did not end everywhere on a single day, because the transformations happened gradually and differently across each region. Descendants of Norse settlers became part of societies in England, Ireland, Normandy, Iceland, Greenland, Russia, and many other places. Their greatest legacy was not merely destruction, but a network of migration, commerce, settlement, cultural exchange, craftsmanship, and political change. As the long ship disappears beyond the evening horizon, we leave the Viking world remembering farmers and families alongside its sailors and warriors.